Hello and welcome. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. International relations can get messy. In fact, sometimes messy feels like a monumental understatement. Kind of like saying that the Titanic had a bit of a boating mishap. The truth is, some countries just can't stand each other, and their feuds have global consequences. Now, you might be thinking, Dundar, why dredge up all this negativity? Can't we all just get along? And to that, I say you clearly haven't been paying attention to, well, anything. Also, where's the fun in pretending everything is sunshine and roses when it's clearly more like, well, a dumpster fire behind a sewage plant? So today, we're diving into the top 10 worst relationships between countries. Buckle up, folks. It's about to get awkward. Let's get started. First up, North Korea and South Korea. This is one of those family feuds that's gone way, way beyond what anyone would consider healthy. Imagine if your sibling borrowed your favorite shirt, didn't return it, and then decided to build a nuclear weapons program in their backyard. That's pretty much the vibe here. After World War II, Korea, once a unified country, was divided along ideological lines. The Korean War from 1950 to 1953 only deepened the rift, and despite a ceasefire, the two Koreas have technically been at war ever since. The DMZ, or Demilitarized Zone, stands as a stark reminder of their ongoing tensions. Next, we have India and Pakistan. Their relationship is like a pressure cooker that's been simmering for decades, with occasional bursts of, let's call it, intense disagreement. The main issue, Kashmir. Both countries claim this region, and they've fought 2 wars over it. Beyond Kashmir, there's a whole cocktail of other issues: religious tensions, terrorism, and a history of mistrust that runs deeper than a well-seasoned biryani. It's a complicated situation, to say the least. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the most intractable and emotionally charged in the world. Imagine 2 roommates who both feel they have a right to the same apartment, but only one actually holds the lease. It's a recipe for, shall we say, domestic disputes. The conflict is rooted in competing claims to land, resources, and national identity. It's a complex web of history, religion, and politics with no easy answers in sight. And to make matters worse, everyone from the United Nations to your weird uncle at Thanksgiving seems to have an opinion on it. Chapter 4. United States and Iran, from allies to adversaries. The relationship between the United States and Iran is a bit like a roller coaster ride, except the roller coaster is on fire and the only safety bar is controlled by a very confused pigeon. They were actually allies once, but that all changed with the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Since then, it's been a tense standoff, marked by sanctions, threats, and the occasional near-miss military confrontation. The Iran nuclear deal was supposed to be a step towards détente, but, well, you know what they say about the best-laid plans, a certain orange-hued former president and, well, everything. Chapter 5, Russia and Ukraine, a bond broken by conflict. Russia and Ukraine. Once upon a time, they were practically siblings, part of the same Soviet family, but then came 2014, and Russia decided to borrow Crimea, which, let's be honest, is a bit like borrowing your neighbor's car, except you repaint it and pretend it was always yours. Unsurprisingly, Ukraine wasn't thrilled. Since then, the conflict has escalated, with Russia backing separatists in eastern Ukraine. It's a messy situation fueled by historical grievances, geopolitical power struggles, and let's be honest, a healthy dose of we're going to do whatever we want from a certain Kremlin resident. Chapter 6, China and Taiwan. One China, 2 very different interpretations. China and Taiwan. The one China policy. A diplomatic tightrope walk if there ever was one. China sees Taiwan as a breakaway province, a wayward child that needs to be brought back into the fold, even if it means using a little persuasion in the form of military exercises and economic pressure. Taiwan, meanwhile, is like, thanks, but we're good. We've been running our own show for decades now, and we kind of like having our own president and everything. It's a delicate dance, with both sides trying to assert their claims without tipping over into full-blown conflict. Chapter 7, Armenia and Azerbaijan, a conflict fueled by history. Armenia and Azerbaijan are locked in a territorial dispute over Nagorno-Karabakh, a region that's technically part of Azerbaijan but with a largely Armenian population. It's one of those conflicts where everyone involved has a point, but nobody can agree on a solution. The conflict has flared up multiple times, most recently in 2020. leading to thousands of casualties and a whole lot of international hand-wringing. It's a reminder that even in the 21st century, history has a nasty habit of repeating itself. Chapter 8, Saudi Arabia and Iran, a rivalry rooted in religion and oil. Saudi Arabia and Iran, two regional heavyweights locked in a battle for dominance in the Middle East. It's a clash of ideologies, with Sunni-majority Saudi Arabia and Shia-majority Iran vying for influence. Throw in vast oil reserves, proxy wars in Yemen and Syria, and a healthy dose of mistrust, and you've got a recipe for, well, let's just say it's not exactly a recipe for peace and harmony. Chapter 9, Turkey and Greece, neighbours with a long history of disagreements. Turkey and Greece. Neighbours who, let's just say, don't always see eye to eye. They've been at odds for centuries, and while they're both NATO members now, that doesn't mean they've buried the hatchet entirely. From disputes over Cyprus to maritime boundaries in the Aegean Sea, they've got a whole laundry list of grievances. It's a bit like having a sibling you constantly squabble with, even though you know you're stuck with them. Chapter 10, Japan and South Korea historical grievances cast a long shadow. And finally we have Japan and South Korea. Their relationship is, to put it mildly, complicated. They're both democracies, they're both US allies, and yet they still struggle to get along. Why? Well, it all goes back to Japan's colonization of Korea in the early 20th century, a period marked by brutality and exploitation. While both countries have moved on, the wounds of the past haven't fully healed. Outro, a world of complexity, so there you have it. A whirlwind tour of some of the world's most troubled relationships. It's enough to make anyone want to crawl under a weighted blanket with a year's supply of comfort food, isn't it? But look, the point isn't to wallow in despair. It's to understand that the world is a complex place, and international relations are rarely simple or straightforward. These conflicts are a reminder that history matters, that words have power, and that even seemingly intractable problems can sometimes find a resolution, even if it takes a while. These are just a few examples of the complex and often contentious relationships between countries. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful content.